Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. I finished my 10-week course of BPC-157 and TB4, also known as TB500. It's sometimes referenced, but it's mostly TB4 these days. I just finished my 10-week course. And so I thought I'd bring some perspectives into it. I also have my little notebook of all my notes where I wrote down how I was feeling, my injections, the milligrams, when I injected, that kind of thing. And I think that's really important. That's the first thing I'll kind of share with you all, is that if you're going to go down the road of injecting peptides and experimenting with peptides, you want to make sure you keep a log. Especially, it does a couple things for you. First, it's going to feel like you've been injecting for like weeks, and it could only be days. And so you might be like, why isn't this working? And you're only on day 5. But when you're injecting yourself 3 times a day, 1 injection in the morning, 2 injections at night, like I was doing, it starts to feel a little laborious. So it can feel like you've been doing it a lot longer than you actually have been. So when I started, just to give some dosages, because I think somebody had asked that in the comments, I started at the beginning of November. I started injecting 250 micrograms of BPC-157 into the arm I felt was injured first. So that was my left arm. That's the one that I had tennis elbow in. If you haven't watched my other videos, that's why I started the TB4 and the BPC-157, is to heal my tennis elbow. I have a bilateral tennis elbow, so I have it in both arms. It started in the left arm, probably in the May timeframe, 2024, and then I got it in the right arm about 2 months later. So that was around like in the July timeframe, and they both are still painful. I still have pain. I still have tennis elbow in both arms, even after the 10 weeks of peptide therapy. But I'll cover that here in a minute. So BPC 250 micrograms twice a day is what I did. I injected my left arm with 250 micrograms of BPC once in the morning when I woke up, and then once at night right before I went to bed. I did not start the TB4 at first. I wanted to start the BPC-157 alone at first. And that's because I wanted to make sure that if I had some kind of adverse reaction, that I could trace it back to the exact peptide that was doing it. If I was injecting both BPC and TB4 at the same time, I wouldn't know which one was causing the adverse reaction. So I started with BPC, and I injected for, it looks like I did 2 days worth of BPC, and then I introduced TB4 in the 3rd day. And I was taking 500 micrograms in my right arm, so that was the other arm, 1 time at night, so 500 micrograms. I did that course for 14 days, so for 2 weeks, that was the course that I took. On the 15th day, I increased my dosage. I think I kicked up the morning dose to 350 micrograms in the morning and then 350 micrograms in the evening. So I just kind of titrated up a little bit to increase the dosage. And that was just based on some research that I did, et cetera. Around the 24th day or so, I was doing 350, 500, TB4 still in that arm. And then I ticked up to, looks like 375 on day 27. So I just kind of slowly increased my dosage. And I kept that 375 in the left arm almost the whole time, but I did increase the TB4 to 750 micrograms, so another 250 micrograms on day 45. On the 57th day, I increased my BPC to 500 micrograms in the morning, 500 at night, so 1 milligram per day spread out into 2 injections, and then 1 milligram of TB4. And that's what I finished my whole course the rest of the time. So very, very conservative in terms of what I was injecting. A lot of people I've seen will actually bring the TB4 up quite a bit. There's actually a book that you can get. It's on Amazon. It's called Peptide Protocols by William Seeds. William Seeds is kind of considered the utmost expert, if you will, in peptides. And this book has a lot of great information in it. It can be very confusing. There's a lot of science and medical terms in it and stuff. But if you just kind of want to get an understanding of what all these peptides do across the board, this is a great book to kind of pick up. I think it's pretty cheap. My wife got it for me for Christmas. So what do I think about it? So that's kind of the course that I did. Now to talk a little bit about how I feel, was it worth it? I think that's probably the big question. For me, it was not a miracle drug at all. I do believe that it helped speed up my progress. So just to give you some idea here, that was the other thing I wrote in the book, and I think that's pretty important too, is, note down your pain level every day when you wake up before you inject. I just kind of wrote down my pain level. And so when I first started, I was on anti-inflammatories for several months. And so I got off anti-inflammatories, and it was about, I was writing down a pain level of 7 in both arms. So it was pretty severe. When I finished the course, I notated a pain level of 2 and about 2 in the left arm. So that was the arm that was injured first, and about 3 in the right arm. The left arm is definitely ahead of the game in terms of recovery, but I think it's because it's been injured longer. The right arm is still kind of coming along. It's at about a 4, and I'd say 3 or 4. I'd say this one's at a 2. So I consider that to be a pretty big difference, from November 10th until my last injection, which was January 15th. I consider that to be pretty good progress. I've read people like they inject like for 5 days and they're cured. I've read that. I did not experience that. It was a very, very slow progression. In fact, if I look at my notes, really for the first 6 days, I was notating 7 in both arms. And then I would say that on the 7th or 8th day, I kind of felt like it got a little bit better. And so I was writing down, hey, it's about a 5 in both arms. And then, then it was like the left arm felt like it was progressing better, like it was like a 4, and this was still at 5. And it kind of went up and down some days. There were some days definitely when I felt like it hurt worse than other days, and it kind of got better and worse. But I think that was a lot from the fact that I was also doing physical therapy and a lot of exercises and strengthening my forearms all the way. And I think that's really important. Like the peptides alone, I think if I had just done that and nothing else, I don't know that it would have had the same positive effect for me. What I was doing was those things called Tyler twists with these Therabands. And I've talked a little bit about that in my other videos, but just to kind of show you what I was doing, basically I would load you load the Theraband with the arm that you're going to exercise. So in this case, it's going to be my left arm. So I preload it, and then I just do eccentrics and concentrics and just really slow and just kind of squeezing it. And I've got some different types of bands, as you can see, like this one's the red one, this one's the green one. The green one's kind of the hardest difficulty. The red one's kind of the one in the middle. And then I had a yellow one. I could tell you that the yellow one that I did, I actually bought the red one first, and it was too painful for me to do. So I actually had to step down to the yellow one when I first started. Now I'm on the green one, and I can do usually 3 sets of 20 on a good day. I can do 3 sets of 20 of those Tyler twists in both arms. And I think doing those, preloading it, and then just really doing the slow eccentric. And then you can also, another trick you can do is kind of as you maybe slip your grip, start to move the other wrist forward to increase the tension as it slips. That's one thing that I kind of learned. So, it takes a little bit of practice, but I really think that doing these Tyler twists and a little bit of stretching, I've read conflicting things on stretching injured tendons. Like some people say do it, some people say don't, some people say do it after you warm up. I don't know what's right there, but it does feel better when I stretch them sometimes. But I only stretch them after I exercise them. The other exercise that I was doing in PT that I felt like was helping was that I would put my arm kind of like on a table, and then I'd have something like a stick that was heavy. So they used like a torque wrench with a bit on the end of it. And basically you rotate it all the way over this way. And so it's kind of pulling your wrist this way, and then you go back and you kind of do that slowly, 10 or so times. And that I feel like really helped stretch it out. I had a lot of massage. I also did some dry needling. I felt like the dry needling really pissed it off. I was hurting for a good week after that. It was pretty painful after that. So I didn't want to do any more of the dry needling stuff. I felt like that actually put me back. Could have just been it caused a lot of soreness. So it just took me longer to recover. I'm not sure. But I will say, in summary, I'm glad I did the peptides. But I think it's important to kind of check reality, have a little reality check there, that it's not going to be a miracle for you, more than likely. I've read the miracle stories, and that's cool and all. But for me, I feel like the peptides plus the physical therapy plus altering my weightlifting routine really got me to where I am today, which is about a 2 in the left arm and about a 3 or 3 plus in the right arm. When it comes to weight training, I've had to be really thoughtful about the exercises that I did. So for example, I haven't done like any weight, like dumbbell work when I'm extending the dumbbell out past my body and I'm having to grip it. I cut that way down. So I didn't barely do any of those. I've just started kind of incorporating like lateral raises with dumbbells at very lightweight. I've just started to add those back in. I cut those out for months. I didn't do those because it just hurt when I did them. So that was an indicator to me that I wasn't ready to do those yet. Overhead pressing, especially with the arms kind of in this, it's kind of hard in this aspect ratio, but any kind of overhead pressing, kind of had to be careful with that a little bit. Tricep press downs, especially like a straight bar press down, I kind of had to change to a rope or like I'm not sure what they call, but they're called like Vulcan grips where they're like a cloth with loops in them. Those felt better. Overhead extensions felt better too. So I kind of did those instead of a straight bar push down. And then one thing I've kind of figured out recently is that I really don't want to lift more than 2 days in a row upper body. So if I do like, chest, my split is typically like a chest and shoulders, back, legs, and then arms. That's kind of my split that I do. I was doing like 6-day-a-week type workouts, and I think that's just too much. What I've noticed is that if I lift for 2 days upper body in a row, I have a lot of soreness. Thing is, this bone right here on the outside of your elbow where tennis elbow flares up, but down my forearm too, I had a lot of kind of just soreness. And so you really need, I felt like that third day, I kind of needed to either do legs or do rest or just rest to give my body a chance to heal up from the upper body stuff. And that continues to be a thing today. So I've had to take more rest days, just getting smarter about my training in overall. Oh, I have also not done any like pull, I don't know what these are called, but they're like these lateral pull-ups where you have the weight on a straight bar and you do this. This is actually very painful for me to do. So I just don't do them anymore. Could that have been how I injured myself? Could it be? I think it's probably from over gripping. Like I go to failure almost every set. Within one rep of failure, usually on the early sets, but usually 2 failure on the later sets. And I notice like I really grip hard when I get to failure because I'm just giving it everything I got. So now I'm mindful of, hey, loosen that grip up a little bit when you're at failure. It's just something to kind of mental cue on that. And then I also use lifting straps, but I've always used straps. So, that's usually on my heavy sets on back days. I have noticed that back days tend to irritate it a little bit more. I think it's maybe the pulling instead of pushing. I don't know. But, I'm just trying to be smart about my training. So let's talk about lasting side effects. I think I did have a lot of side effects while I was taking the peptides, maybe more than some. The first thing, it's definitely the anhedonia. If you don't know what that is, essentially it's a lack of wanting to do things for enjoyment, like they call it kind of a flatness. That tends to be continuing. I noticed that it got way better like 2 days after I had my last injection. I just stopped injecting. I noticed the anhedonia really dropped off, but it's kind of come back a little bit. You read some pretty terrible stories out on Reddit. I don't know, how much is external factors playing in or what, but there's some people that take 1 dose, I've read, of BPC-157 and they have anhedonia for years. You need to be aware of that anhedonia, definitely be aware of that. But it had a pretty substantial effect on me. To give you an example, like one thing I really like doing is smoking briskets. I'm not like hardcore competition or anything, but I enjoy eating them, right? And the last brisket I made while I was on peptides, I was like, I don't really want to do this anymore. Like, it's a lot of work. I don't know if it's worth it. That is like totally not me, like at all. I've been smoking brisket. My friends and my family enjoy it when I give them brisket. It's something that I do and I enjoy. But I didn't want to do it anymore. I haven't worked on my cars for a while. That's kind of a hobby I have. I haven't done that. So I kind of just stopped doing a lot of things I enjoy doing. And it's funny because like it didn't really hit me till that brisket thing happened. And I was like, yeah, something's wrong here. The other thing I had was I had some anxiety. I'm subject to anxiety. It's in my family. I've had it before, et cetera. But I've noticed that cranked up a little bit. I don't know if it was the BPC or the TB4, but one of them tended to do that. I feel like the TB4 did make my teeth more sensitive. I had some tooth pain around that. I had that in some of the videos, but that came and went. Wasn't really a big deal. I've read some other things where people had blood vessels like grow in their eyes and cause blurred vision. I didn't really have that. The side effects weren't terrible, but it's definitely something to think about and be aware of, especially if you need to be on, if you're going to be on it for a long time. Like I did 10-week course. That was generally what people kind of recommended online. So that's what I went with. You can do shorter bouts. I've seen people cycle it on and off. And, you know, the problem is there's not any human studies for this. So everybody's just kind of learning from each other. So there's really no standard. So if you're looking for a standard, that peptide book is basically as close as you're going to get. And it's not very specific. It's like in this range. I've used it in this range. So just be aware of that. You know, the other thing I would say too is that, you know, these are not FDA approved chemicals, right? Or medicines. So, but I bought from a brand that did third-party testing, and that third-party testing was outside their lab, and they had certificates and I could look at them and things, and they were within like 99 point something. So they were pretty pure from what I could tell. But you know, maybe the source, I did use the same source through the whole time because I wanted to keep it consistent. Maybe they are less efficacious. I don't know. But just something to be aware of too, that, you know, some people are like, yeah, I did BPC for like 4 weeks and it did nothing. I think that might be an indication that you maybe didn't get something of quality. I definitely feel like I got better on the peptides for sure. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't a miracle, but I do feel like it sped my recovery up. And I generally am a slow healer. I've been that way my whole life. So I think it did help. So that's my experience. Like I'm continuing my physical therapy, a lot of massage and stuff, and doing the exercise, the Tyler twists, you know, some stretching. I'm still lifting, but I'm trying to lift smart. Am I going to do peptides again? I'm not sure. You know, I'm going to kind of see, at least for 10 weeks, I'm not going to do any, because from what I've read, like 10 weeks on, 10 weeks off is generally what you should do. That's just what I saw. Overall cost, it was about $750 for a 10-week course at the dosages that I mentioned. So definitely not cheap, but not, you know, it's definitely not in the thousands of dollars like a procedure or something like that would cost you. So at a high deductible plan like I have in medical, if it gets approved. Anyway, that's another talk. But, you know, I'm glad I did it. You know, it definitely, it cured the curiosity of peptides. Was I hoping for a miracle? Yes. And I did. I felt like I got benefit, but not a miracle. So I'll take that. You know, I think it's a positive experience. So hopefully it's helpful. You know, if you have any questions, maybe something I didn't cover, or maybe I covered a lot of data points pretty quick. So maybe if you want to ask a specific question, I'm happy to answer that. I can't tell you where I got my sources. That will get you permabanned. But I'm hoping, you know, they maybe take some of these chemicals off the ban list so that people can try them. You know, I think it's an important thing. So anyway, hope everything's going well for you. Keep up the great work. I know you can do it. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.